Good morning. It is another absolutely freezing day in Gothenburg, and I might have to get some thicker mittens to be able to keep on doing this, because I am freezing my hand off. But I shall persevere, because today you and I are going to talk about philosophy, and specifically philosophy in programming. Now, something that you are going to, trust me, if you're not already there, because I actually argue that a lot of programmers who are at that magical border between, I think it's a year, maybe 2 and 5 years, most of them do something that, and it's not your fault, we all do it, you're gonna do it, it's like puberty, you just have to get it over with. Most of us get into a period in our career where we are philosophical, where we have probably spent some time reading one of Uncle Bob's books, or Martin Fowler's stuff, or some other big wig in the programming communities. And basically we have been told that there are certain so-called best practices and programming patterns and all that stuff. And the thing is that, much like a teenager who is having his or her first drink, you have absolutely no experience and no control whatsoever over what you're doing, and odds are that you're gonna overdo it. Now, in the case of a teenager, it's going to end with a massive hangover and some vomit on the floor. In the case of programming, it's going to end in really bad code, or very so-called over-engineered code. Now, I'll tell you a story about myself when I did this, that hopefully will illustrate a little bit of the issue. So, when I was at the university, we had this exercise, or hand-in thing we were going to build. It was basically a standard CRUD application, and for those of you who don't know what a CRUD application is, it stands for create, read, update and delete, which is almost every single application that in the world that can do that sort of thing. So you can add things to it, you can update things to the system, and you can read from the system, and you can delete things from the system. In the specific scenario, it was just a very silly little exercise project where you were supposed to be able to add records to a web page and update them and remove them and that sort of thing, right? So, said and done. Our stakes were set, the scope was set, we started working. Or rather, I started working. And I finished my project, or the hand-in, I think it was about roughly a week before the hand-in period. And so, being the overzealous, overachieving type, at least when I care about something, I thought, hey, okay, I have this full week now. What could I do in order to, make this even fancier? I had already checked off all the boxes for the hand-in. I had finished the project, but I couldn't just let that be the end of it. I wanted to add something more, because I really love programming, right? So more is always better, right? And so I had read this amazing article from Amazon where they had explained that the way that they think about availability is a little bit different from what at least I thought was the case. So Amazon had realized that since they have so many different systems and so many different databases and clusters and so forth, they found that they were in a situation where they had to pick between data consistency. In other words, if a user is traveling from different servers on their system, that one part of their problem was that sometimes there was a synchronization error for the user, so that they had data about the user in one place and they didn't have data in another place, and that inconsistency caused errors for the user. And then they had another problem, which was high availability, that sometimes because of this data inconsistency, they had an issue where the user either got logged out of their session, or that basically the system, like the web, like the purchase flow for the user crashed. So they were trying to solve this, and what they found was that for them, and it actually to me makes a lot of sense, if they couldn't solve both problems. You can't have data consistency and high availability, at least they couldn't. And so what they did was that they optimized for high availability and just bought that that there might have been an inconsistency in the data, in their data, because they found that if they just allowed the user to keep on purchasing, they actually made more money, and they could always apologize if something went wrong later on. They could always fix a potential data inconsistency issue at a later stage in the life cycle of a user's purchase. So I thought, yeah, cool. I think I understand what that means. Let's try something. Let's make this a high availability mindset feature that I'm going to build, something like that. And I pondered, what could I build? And then I thought, hey, what happens if the database isn't there? What will I do? And I thought, okay, cool, I'll do this. This is a Java application, basic standard, like MySQL, Tomcat setup, most basic things in the world. And I thought, what if I could do a poll to check if the database connection is there, and if it goes down, I will catch that error in a try-catch, and then I will have a in-memory storage setup that simply lets the user keep on pushing data to the system, and I'll just save that in memory, and if the memory runs out, I will start writing to disk on a file, and then whenever the database comes back on, I will flush all that data to the system, and it's like the user can just keep on using the system over and over. Now let's for the moment ignore the fact that I didn't think about the fact that in order for me to simulate an entire experience for the user, I would have to have the entire database, or most of the database, in memory to start off with, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a database, and it's not even feasible at scale. But I was a young man filled of dreams. Anyway, I built this thing, and I almost can't deliver the project in time. I almost failed my exam because I messed up so bad. It got so complicated so very quickly, and by the end of it, when I finally deliver it, my teacher comes up to me, and at the time, I didn't really understand this. It's so now that I'm older and wiser, I realize how smart he actually was. And he tells me, Frederick, see, the thing is that when you finish the project, you made the thing that I was asking for. And when if I'm your customer, that's all I wanted you to build. And now you've added all this other stuff on top of it that I haven't asked for, and that is potentially going to cause a lot of problems. And I kind of went, well, I was really fast and you got it early, so I thought you wanted some extra stuff. And, being all defensive. And he said, yeah, but it's... see, the thing is that you now made the project more complicated than it needed to be. And that's actually a bad thing, because you're not going for over-delivery. You're going for delivering the exact thing that I wanted, like that the customer wants. And it's only now when I realize how genius and how elegant that mindset actually is. Because the thing is that when you're building something, it's actually better, because every line of code you write is a risk to the system. Odds are statistically that something could break, it becomes more expensive to maintain, and the smaller you can make a project, the better. You want to build the smallest thing that does exactly what it needs to be doing. Think of it this way. You could, in theory, build a toaster that also works as a water dispensing system for flowers. But why would you? Because what will happen is that you will ruin the toaster. If somebody asks you to build a toaster the mindset you should have is not to get like all philosophical and trying to figure out all the other stuff that you could build or add or like so forth. Your mindset should be, how can I build the perfect toaster that is something that is like the best toaster that I can possibly make, without diluting the value that it's providing? Because the mindset that I found to be the most powerful is that if you're adding a feature to a system, to anything, you have to remember that the more stuff something can do, yes, it gets more features, but it also makes the thing more complicated. And simplicity is a really, really important thing. So be like, less is more. Try to always remember that. Only add things that is going to be truly valuable to the consumer of your product.